Welcome to Testify. Today we take a look at the book of Ezekiel. Who was Ezekiel? He was a priest who had been living in Jerusalem during the first Babylonian attack on the city. The city itself was spared, but the king of Babylon took some Israelite prisoners into exile. Ezekiel was one of them. The book begins 5 years after these terrible events, and we find Ezekiel sitting on the bank of a canal near his Israelite refugee camp, at the age of 30. It's the year that he would have been installed as a priest in Jerusalem. Ezekiel chapter 1-11. Commissioning, Synax, and God's departure from the temple. Ezekiel has a vision of a storm cloud approaching, and within the cloud, he sees 4 strange creatures connected by their outstretched wings. Each of the creatures has 4 faces: a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Their wings support a throne with a mysterious human-like figure shrouded in fire and glowing light. Ezekiel realizes what he's seeing and describes it as the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, riding on his royal throne chariot. The images in the vision are similar to when God appeared on Mount Sinai in Exodus 19 and 24, as well as when his presence came over the Ark of the Covenant in Exodus 25. God first speaks to Ezekiel from atop the throne chariot and commissions him as a prophet. He is to accuse Israel of breaking the covenant agreement with their God. Israel has given their allegiance to other gods and has been worshipping idols, which has led to rampant social injustice and violence. In response to all this, God has appointed Ezekiel to warn Israel that the first Babylonian attack on Jerusalem would be matched by a second, except this time the city and its temple will be totally destroyed. In chapters 4-5, we see how Ezekiel gets his message across with his words and by performing Synax. But no one is listening to Ezekiel's message. Israel would reject him because of their rebellious and hard hearts. After his commission, a dismayed Ezekiel began to perform his tasks. After about a year, he has another vision, in which he is taken on a virtual tour of the temple to see what's happening. In the outer court in front of the temple stands a large idol statue. He sees the elders of Israel worshipping other gods, both outside and inside the temple, and he also sees women worshipping the Babylonian god Tammuz. Finally, he sees God's glorious throne chariot move out of the most holy space and leave the temple and head east towards Babylon. And so we come full circle. In chapter 11, we discover why and how God's glory came to appear before Ezekiel as he sat by the canal in Babylon. The Israelites have driven their God away, and he gives the city and temple over to destruction, yet God has not abandoned his people. At the end of the vision, God promises that he will return a remnant of Israel back to the land, transforming them by removing their heart of stone and giving them a new, soft heart of flesh, so that they can love and follow their God. Ezekiel 12-24. Warnings of Israel's coming judgment. Chapters 12-24 of the book of Ezekiel focus on God's judgment coming for Israel. In his poems, he portrays senseless rebellion and idolatry, and the ruin that results. In chapters 14, 18, and 20, Ezekiel also acts as a lawyer, arguing the case that Jerusalem's destruction is truly deserved after centuries of covenant violation. He argues that even if the most righteous people in the world, like Noah, Daniel, and Job, were alive and praying for mercy on Israel, God wouldn't accept their prayers. It's far too late. God's goodness actually demands that he bring justice on this generation of Israel. The exile has become inevitable, as they've reached the point of no return. Ezekiel chapter 25-33. Judgment on the nations and the destruction of Jerusalem. In these chapters Ezekiel focuses on the nations, immediately around Israel, like Ammon, Moab, Edom, and Philistia, as well as the 2 most powerful states in the region, Egypt and Tyre. Israel has allied with these nations and adopted their gods and idols. God accuses the kings of Tyre and Egypt of arrogantly viewing themselves as gods, defining right and wrong on their terms. He holds these kings accountable for their pride and announces that he will use Babylon to bring them down. They will face God's justice along with everyone else. Following these intense sections is a short story in chapter 33. Ezekiel is met by a refugee who has just arrived from Jerusalem to give him a report. Babylon has attacked the city of Jerusalem once again. This time the city has fallen, and the temple is destroyed. Ezekiel's warnings became a reality. Ezekiel chapter 34 to 37. Coming hope after exile. The next chapters explain aftermath of the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple. In chapter 11, however, we were left with the hope that there was still a future beyond the exile. God promises Israel that he will raise up a new David, a future messianic king who will be the kind of leader that Israel always needed but never had. God will deal with their problem of rebellion by giving them new hearts. Ezekiel's vision of the dried bones recalls the story about the creation of humanity from Genesis 2, in which God made humans from dirt and divine breath. Israel and all humanity have rebelled, resulting in death. So the only hope left is that God would perform an act of new creation and remake humans in such a way that they truly live in a relations. Ezekiel chapter 38 to 39. God defeats Gog, a king representing evil nations. First come chapters 38 and 39, where God promises to finally defeat evil among the nations, which is personified by a ruler named Gog of the land of Magog. This army is a symbol of all the rebellious nations put together. Gog resists God's plan to restore his people. Just like Pharaoh in the Exodus story, Gog comes to destroy them. God, however, unleashes his justice upon Gog in a number of scenes. Gog is first consumed by an earthquake and once again by fire. But after that, God strikes Gog and his army down in the fields, where they lie unburied for months. Ezekiel chapter 40 to 48. Vision of a restored temple and renewed creation. After God's victory, chapters 40 to 48 describe how God's presence will one day return to his people and his temple, resulting in restoration. Ezekiel has an elaborate vision of a new temple and city. He's given a heavenly tour guide, who shows Ezekiel around this new temple complex that's much larger and even more majestic than Solomon's temple. There's a new altar, new priests, and a new system of worship. After the elaborate tour, God's glorious throne chariot that Ezekiel saw in his first vision comes back and enters this new temple. That concludes the book of Ezekiel. Please join us for more.